Well, at Twitter, there are probably around 100 interns they are hiring for the summer. I'm only coming from Indonesia, while there are like a lot of smart students from Harvard, MIT, Stanford, UC Berkeley. My first YC experience. It's very fun. And then I had a startup idea in 2019 as well. I got to the interview stage, but didn't get in. So Lumina is my third experience with YC. Every day we need to attend the YC bootcamp from like 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning.
Oof.
Yeah.
Time differences, yeah. And then you also became part of the leadership as well, right?
Yeah, I started managing my own team as a leader at age 22. So initially we grew very fast, even organically.
Yeah.
So we went from like 0 to 1 million users in just 6 months. Using AI in moderation, I think, is the key, both to be productive and to be sustainable in the long run.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the CTO Show by Tech Vibe. I'm your host Philip, and today we're in Jakarta talking to a special guest who is Irfan. Irfan is the CTO of Lumina, a YC-backed company, and before he was an engineering leader at a company who has raised over $100 million. Today we're going to dive into his personal journey, some leadership lessons as a CTO, and the future of engineering using tools like AI. Okay, well Irfan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Philip.
Irfan, I want to kind of just start by talking a little bit more about your background, because I think you've spoken publicly about coming from a very humble background and then ending up as almost, I think, one of the first Indonesian students to actually ever intern at Twitter. So take me back to that initial phase and, how did you get started?
Yeah, I think it started a long time ago, around 20 years ago. So I was born to a low-income family in Boyolali, Central Java. So it's pretty remote areas. So my parents are farm workers, and my mother was a housemaid for our richer neighbors. Back then, I don't think I realized that I was smarter than my peers in my village. So I didn't know. But back then, my teacher was sending me to science competitions. Wow. And then I realized that, okay, I think I won some of those science competitions. And then the school and the local government started to fund me to go to trainings. And then at age 10, I won a gold medal at the National Science Olympiad.
Wow.
And I won a bronze medal at International Science Olympiad. I think that's how all of the story goes. Yeah, so then through scholarships and education, I went to better schools in my junior high school. I went to better school for my senior high schools, and then I got a scholarship to University of Indonesia, where I studied computer science.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how everything started. And in college, I participate in competitive programming. So you were given 5 hours to solve 5 problems, mostly algorithm, data structure, and a lot of math problems as well. You need to solve as many problems as possible in 5 hours. And then at that time, there are a lot of movies and TV shows like Silicon Valley. I mean, a story about Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs.
Right.
And then I got interested to the Silicon Valley tech landscape and how to get there. So I realized that, okay, to be a software engineer there, you need to pass the interview. And thankfully, the interview formats are very similar to what I have been studying for years for the competitive programming. Wow. So the difference is for the Silicon Valley interview, you are given 45 minutes to solve one algorithmic problems. But you need to do it live in front of a real interviewer.
Right.
Meanwhile, for the competitive programming, you need to just sit in front of a computer for 5 hours.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how everything started.
That's crazy. I guess in the beginning, was there a focus on doing a lot of engineering and math and science that your parents kind of inspired you to do? Or was this something that you kind of discovered naturally for yourself, that you were very passionate about these kind of subjects and you're drawn to them?
Yeah. My parents support me a lot, but they are not well educated. So my father is illiterate. He cannot read. and my mother also like only finished primary school.
Wow.
Yeah, so they motivated me through other means, like always motivates me. But for math, science, and everything, mostly it comes from my curiosity and the support of my teachers as well. So who got me like through all of those science competition. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. And obviously a lot of these experiences when, you're growing up in that environment, going to university, doing these programming competitions, and then obviously going to Twitter, right? Maybe that was like super new for you, right?
Yeah.
How did you feel, and what was
Yeah, so I was very nervous back then because even in my university in Depok, very near Jakarta, I was pretty nervous because I came from a village. Meanwhile, like other students are coming from big cities.
Yeah.
So that's pretty nervous. While at Twitter, there are probably around 100 interns they are hiring for the summer.
Yeah.
I think 90% are coming from US universities, and 90%, and then like the rest of the 10% mostly comes from Canada, Europe. Only like a handful of us are coming from random countries like Indonesia.
Right.
Yeah, so I was pretty nervous, and I feel not very confident initially that, okay, I'm only coming from Indonesia, while there are like a lot of smart students from Harvard, MIT, Stanford, UC Berkeley.
Yeah.
But that was initially. And then weeks gone by, and I see how my performance is. I see how the other interns are performing.
Yeah.
I talk a lot with my mentors and managers as well. And then I realized that, okay, I don't think I'm worse than any of those guys. So that gave me confidence as well. So that was a gradual process to build up my confidence. And that at the end of the internship, after 3 months, my mentor, who has been working in the Valley for like more than 10 years, said to me that, hey, Irfan, I think you are one of my best interns that I've ever worked with.
Wow. Wow. That's crazy. And how did you react when he gave you that compliment?
I was really surprised because I see that the other students are very smart too, but I think he knows that I work really hard, and I listen to his feedback a lot, and I really deliver what he's asking me to do.
Wow. So after the end of the internship, I'm assuming that, your reviews went very, very good. And, I guess most people would try to consider, hey, like, should I just move to Silicon Valley full time, or maybe apply for another tech company? Did you consider that, or?
Yeah, so when I got my first internship, I was a sophomore.
Yeah.
So they had me a written offer.
Yeah.
And I got to choose any team that I want. So I tried another team, which I really like. So after spending like 2 summers in Silicon Valley, I kind of know if I were to join a tech company full time, how is it like from the morning till the evening, even like what to do on the weekends as well.
Right.
Yeah. I probably like already maxed out my experience during those 6-7 months, because after work, I also go to like meetups, hackathons, community events as well, and do a lot of socializing with other interns and engineers, like founders as well.
Right.
Yeah. So I kind of know what to expect if I were to join a tech company full time in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
But deep down inside, I want to do more, especially for my country, Indonesia. And one of my dreams was trying to build a startup here in Indonesia.
Right. Most people, when they kind of think about that, they think about, oh, I still need to get more foundations. I still need to like work in the Valley or work in more, bigger companies, right? For several years to get more knowledge, or those kind of things as well. Like, was that something that you ever thought about, or did you feel quite confident going in that, you could actually do this right out of, those experiences?
Yeah, I have like several options back then. First is working for a big tech company or like startups in the US.
Yeah.
Second was just build my own startup right away after graduation.
Yeah.
The third one is joining a very early stage startup, and I get to learn to build everything from the ground up. So back then my thought process was, okay, if you want to build a successful startup, what do you need? Okay, I probably need some money. Second, I probably need a lot of networks because I need to get investors, need to find a partner, hire employees, get customers, right? Third, and I think the most important one is I need some experience on how to do things right. If I were to work in the US, then I will definitely get money. I will definitely get network, but it will be a different set of networks, right? Mostly will be like engineers in the US, while where I will be building is Indonesia. So I don't think the overlap is that many.
So you already had a long-term vision that long-term you would want to come back to Indonesia, build your network here. I see.
So that's how I chose. So then it comes to, okay, do I want to build something right away or join an early stage startup? Back then, I realized that I'm not confident yet to build something on my own because I literally know nothing. So I think joining a very early stage startup and get to shadow the more senior people doing stuff will benefit me. So that's why I joined Stoko as a founding team.
Got it.
The first engineer.
Got it. I want to learn more about Toko, but I guess before we do that, maybe some other engineers or young people from Southeast Asia, maybe they don't have the opportunity to intern at Twitter or in Silicon Valley. I'm just curious, would you want to share a little bit more about what your perception was, right? Like in terms of the different environments between Silicon Valley and Indonesia, what was it like living there and how would you compare and contrast those experiences?
I think it's very different. The working culture is very different between Indonesia and the US. A lot of Indonesians are very shy, especially like me being Japanese. It's very hard for me to speak up in front of more than 3 people. Meanwhile, in the US, when you are at a meeting or when you are in a discussion, you are expected to speak up more and you need to contribute more to the discussion. So that's something that I find very different. So if you want to succeed in the US, you need to be more outspoken in sharing your ideas. That's super different and it took me a long time to get used to.
Got it. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's a valuable skill now that, you became a leader and stuff. Okay. So I guess going back to Toko, can you tell me a little bit more about that specific business? Like, why did you decide to join this company as an early team? And what was that experience like for you?
So after coming back from the US and looking for opportunities here, I talked to dozens of companies, founders, and then I ended up with Stoko because the mission was how to empower underserved people to work for a better life. Back then, the idea was connecting farmers with restaurant owners, especially the small, medium restaurants in the bigger cities like Jakarta. So the goal was on how can the farmers get more income by selling their produce directly to us instead of through tens of middlemen. And for the small restaurant owners, instead of they are going to the wet market at 3 a.m., they can just order from the app and it will get delivered at 4 a.m. So my family was a family of farmers. And we've been doing this for decades or centuries, I guess. But the living condition is not going better. So we stayed poor for very long.
So this is something that personally resonated with you, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Wow, okay. And did you join as a very senior leader already at Toko?
I was joining as a founding team, but since I just graduated, I started from the bottom as well.
Wow, okay. And you were which years old at that point?
At the point, I was 20.
Wow, okay. So 20 years old, still very, very young. And then can you tell me a little bit more about the growth trajectory of Toko? How did it grow and those kind of things?
I joined very early. So there was only 2 founders, 1 designer and me. When I joined, we haven't had any products yet. We haven't fundraised. So it's very early. And then I think we raised 3 times pre-seed, seed, and Series A. And after 3 years, I think the company grew to around 300 full-time employees and more than 1,000 blue-collar workers.
Wow.
and we are serving more than 40,000 restaurants in Jakarta area.
Wow. Okay. And then you also became part of the leadership as well, right?
Yeah, I started managing my own team as a leader at age 22. So previously, I was like managing interns, more junior engineers from the get-go. But officially, I became manager at 22, managing around 15 people.
Okay. So you're 22 years old, you're managing 15 people, and I'm assuming most of these people are older than you as well,
correct.
right? Okay. And this is the first time you managed, right?
Yeah.
So how did you learn, or what was that experience like for you?
I think it's a gradual process for me because initially when I joined, we hired interns already, a couple interns. So I get to like practice how to delegate and then how to coach them, how to resolve like conflicts. So I learned by doing mostly by managing interns first and then managing full-timers who are newer to join the company. Yeah, and beyond that, I also learned from other employees as well, especially if I've been managing people for far longer than me. I also read books. Yeah, so
Wow.
I learned a lot because I think managing people is a very big responsibility.
Yeah.
And if things are not going well, then yeah, you need to be responsible.
Are there any like specific stories that were like challenging, like that, like that maybe you had to kind of overcome to become a better leader in the beginning?
I think so. Back then we are very new to hiring people as well. So we have many instances where we hired the wrong people.
Oh, I see.
So for example, we are hiring for this specific skill set, but when we are interviewing the person, it seems like this person is the right fit for this role. But after like 2 months, 3 months, or even more, we realize that this is not the right fit for the role.
Yeah.
So that's something that we have learned to overcome like many times.
Yeah.
So that's something tough for me as well, because you are hiring someone and you sell them like the company's mission, why you should join us. They need to leave their current company, even like they need to relocate.
Yeah.
But then we tell them that, hey,
It doesn't work out.
it doesn't work out. Yeah. It's very hard back then.
That is tough. Yeah. Interesting. Wow. And I guess like a lot of engineers, when I talk to them, sometimes if they really like engineering, they want to go more on the IC route, right? Because it allows you to more stick with the core engineering workload, as opposed to for you, when you're managing people, and especially 15 people, I can't imagine, like you can't really take a lot of time to code yourself, I guess. A lot of it is more management, or even maybe you're even more involved on the product side. Is there kind of a decision that you took one way or another that you decided to pursue?
Yeah, I think back then it comes a bit non-intentional.
Yeah.
Because back then I still want to code, obviously, because I really like coding.
Yeah.
But back then the company needs someone to manage the people, and it was very hard to find good managers in Indonesia back then, because the startup scene is very new. So engineering as a discipline is very new. So it's very hard. So we need someone from the inside who can be coached to be a leader. So that's how I come to be.
Wow.
Yeah, and I just up-level myself in that skill set.
Wow. I feel like your growth trajectory is pretty insane, like only 2-3 years ago, you were like, this is the first time in Silicon Valley. And now, managing a huge team, 15 people, those kind of things. Yeah. Okay. So, and then what happened to this company? Like what,
Yeah, so we raised a Series A, and we were about to raise a Series B in 2020. Yeah, and in February and March, COVID happens.
Oof.
And back then I don't know if this is going to be something super big, super scary that will change our life forever.
Yeah.
So initially we thought that, okay, there is a virus from China. Oh, this is this regular flu.
Yeah.
But then the lockdown happened.
Yeah.
And most of our customers are closing, because back then during the lockdown, schools are closed, universities are closed, office buildings are closed.
Yeah.
And majority of our customers are small restaurants in those areas.
Yeah.
So those people are shutting down as well. Some even went back to their hometown permanently. Yeah, so in just like 3 weeks, our revenue went down about like 80%.
Oh my God.
And the runway that we have to prepare for the fundraise was cut very short, and we cannot like pay everyone.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. So is that kind of led to the decision of trying to just shut down the company, or what was the next step at that point?
Yeah, back then there are like several options, either to continue operating but with a very streamlined team, or we sell the company, or we pivot to B2C, because back then the B2C was booming. But switching to B2B is going to be very hard. We tried that in the months during COVID, and it's super hard because we've been all in on B2B.
Yeah.
Yeah, for selling the company, I think selling the company with this current condition that we have back then, like where we have heavy operations but very little revenue, is going to be very hard. So we decided to shut down the company and we sell the digital assets, the products. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a very tough time for me because we need to lay off like, even in our team, we lay off like 40, 50
Oh my gosh.
engineers, product managers.
Did you have those conversations individually or?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, because most of the engineers are people that I refer or I ask to join personally. So yeah, back then I call like everyone, hey, sorry to inform you, but the company is shutting down next week.
Wow.
And then, we need to lay off everyone, including myself.
Oh my gosh. I can't imagine that.
Yeah.
I guess, did you need some time to kind of take off and like mentally recover after that experience? Or, what was your kind of next plan or thought process from there?
Back then, my job was to help all of these engineers and workers to find other jobs.
Yeah.
So for the 1-2 months following the shutdown, I was helping my friends first to get a job. Yeah, and then I got like probably a couple of weeks to reflect. Yeah, but during that time, we are also like talking to bigger companies who are interested in acquiring our assets.
Wow. That's an insane experience, I guess, right? You guys ride the roller coaster, but then COVID kind of came down and stuff. Yeah. So you ended up joining Gudang Ada, right?
Yes,
For your next startup. How did that opportunity come about?
Yeah, so it was through the acquisition.
Yeah.
So at the end of the conversations, we have a couple companies who are interested to acquire our assets.
Yeah.
And Gudang Ada was, I think, like the natural fit, because as Toko back then, we have like warehouses, we have salespeople, we have a team of drivers, and the software that we are building also geared towards supporting the operations.
Yeah.
While Gudang Ada is also building more or less similar things. But for Stoko, we sell mostly vegetables. For Gudang Ada, we sell consumer products. Yeah. So the operations are very similar. And back then they raised a lot of money. I think they raised like 30 million. And they have the cash and purchasing power to buy us and integrate our product directly to their operations.
Got it. And at that time they were doing consumer, so COVID was not as big of an impact basically for them. Is that
for Gudang Ada, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They are B2B, but the business that they are serving are mostly grocery stores. But people are still buying groceries.
Yeah, it's such an essential thing, right? To actually do. Okay. And then when you joined, the company, I guess, was still, would you say like early stage, or how would you describe it?
I think it's a Series A, but they were having a very hard time in building the tech product. I guess the founder is a single founder, but he has more than 40 years experience in the FMCG industry.
Wow.
Yeah, so they are very strong in the offline and sales operations, but they need help on the tech and product side. Yeah, so I joined them as a VP of engineering, but I need to revamp their products as well.
Wow.
aside from integrating our product from Stoco.
How was that experience?
Oh, that was very interesting
Yeah.
because back then I was like just a kid in front of like very senior people.
Uh-huh.
Back then I was like 25, while the founder is almost 60,
Wow.
and the other VPs are either in their 40s or 50s.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I learned a lot on stakeholder management, working with more senior people.
What advice do you have about stakeholder management?
Oh yeah, stakeholder management is probably one key learning I learned during this time at the company.
Yeah.
So as an engineer, we are accustomed to talking with code or talking to people who understand our language.
Yeah.
But when you are working with stakeholders who are not as familiar with technology, they have been working for like 20 years, 30 years.
Yeah.
And they know very little about how the technology is being built. So I need to talk to each one of them like personally. So I was doing like one-on-one with them.
Wow.
And then like showing how the product is going to work with their current setup.
Right.
Yeah. So it's mostly trying to treat each stakeholders individually and building the trust and relationship day by day with them, little by little, to each one of them. And we have like 15, 20 stakeholders. Yeah, so that was tough and tiring, but I learned a lot.
How did you overcome, obviously in more traditional environments, people respect the elderly, but they maybe look down upon younger people. Did you have that issue, or how did you overcome that issue?
Yeah, we have those issues as well. Because, hey, who is this kid who are like trying to build software for my teams,
right,
and it needs to change our SOPs, it needs to change how we work. I think back then it started with building the MVP. For example, if we are building a sales tool for their sales team to use, we start by building the MVP that only change their working style little by little, and then after that we can measure if that's working out or not. If it's working out and their KPIs or OKRs are improved, then we have shown result. So that's how the trust was built back then, by building something smaller that gets them result, and then we can build something bigger for them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Essentially, it comes down to getting them what they want.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it seems like a process that is, I guess, more iterative, and then you probably have to, consistently keep on delivering results that make sense, and then they trust you more and more and more and more.
Yeah,
right. Wow. Okay. Seems like very, very difficult.
Very difficult, and it requires a lot of work.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Wow. And so basically, you guys ended up, actually growing really fast, right? Raising over $100 million, and then how many employees was the company at the
In around 1,000 plus.
1,000 plus employees,
but mostly I think like 70% are field people. The one in the office are around 200, I guess.
Okay. Wow. And at that point, some people would be like pretty comfortable, right? Because, you're a very senior position at a very big company, very successful startup. Did you think that way, or what was going on in your mind?
I was comfortable for a bit, and then as usual, I got bored.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, at that age, I was like probably miles ahead of my peers. So that's something to be comfortable with.
Yeah.
But I think back then I think that, okay, I'm still young, I can do other things. So I started looking out for other opportunities which are more higher risk.
I see. So I guess from, the previous experience at Toco and now, VP at a very, very big company, was this when you finally developed confidence that, hey, I can, start a company and be a CTO, or is that kind of, you felt ready to do that now?
In terms of my technical skills and engineering management skills, I'm pretty confident.
Yeah.
But I think building a startup is not only that.
Yeah.
There are like the product aspect, GTM, fundraising, building a team, selling. So I'm pretty confident with my engineering management and product building skills.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with the rest yet.
Got it. Okay. But you still kind of decided to maybe start exploring and take the leap of faith, basically, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And, obviously you were working in very traditional spaces that, okay, like maybe there's one industry that you're very familiar with. Is that kind of, when you started to look for different ideas or even different co-founders, like how did that process work for you?
So back then, I was working for 5 years in the logistics e-commerce industry.
Yeah.
Where we work with so many blue collar workers.
Yep.
And to scale the operations, it always comes down to how to manage the blue collar workers more efficiently.
Yeah.
And how to hire a good blue collar workers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back then, a lot of my ideas are around that. And so the co-founder of Stoko back then, he became a VC, but he reached out to me that he's looking to explore some ideas. So we are talking, and then we decided to team up again to build Lumina.
This episode is brought to you by TechVibe, your one-stop IT recruitment solution provider. We connect global companies with top tech talent across Southeast Asia. Whether you're looking for permanent hires, short-term contractors, or employer of record, EOR services, we've got you covered, especially in the IT and digital sectors. Thanks for tuning in. And now, enjoy the episode.
Tell me about Lumina. Like, what was the initial idea? How did you guys stumble into it? Yeah.
Yeah, so the idea, I think, stems from our problem in Gudang Ada and Stoko. So back then we have more than 1,000 blue collar workers in Stoko. We probably have at the end, I think probably more than 2,000 in Gudang Ada. And managing, hiring blue collar workers and managing them are very hard, especially relating to how Indonesians behave. Which is very different from China or Vietnam. And they are more disciplined. While here, people needs to have strong SOP and strong supervisors to work. So we tinker around so many ideas in the blue collar space. But at the end, we figure that, okay, we got to start somewhere. And then we start by building a recruiting platform to hire for blue collar workers.
And at that point in Indonesia, were there already similar platforms?
There have been some platforms, but mostly old school recruiting platforms like JobStreet, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is mostly for white collar, but some blue collar opportunities are there as well.
I see.
But there is no specific and deep platform to hire blue collar workers.
I see.
For example, I want to hire 50 driver in the next month. It will be very hard to look for them.
It seems like a lot of the challenge is also visibility and distribution of how do you actually get blue collar workers to sign up to even apply for the jobs, right? And maybe some of that is even offline, but how did you guys deal with that initial issue of visibility, for example?
Yeah, I think back then one of the problem was how to build a job platform that caters to the local needs, because one of the primary reason a worker will join a company if the conversation is good, if the work is good, but one of the most important thing is how close the commute is. So
location.
Yeah, location is very important.
Right.
So back then we started very small in Jakarta and Tangerang only. So we just focus on that. So we talk to as many companies as possible in that area, and we activate the worker community offline first. So we are going to schools, local communities to our workers. We even utilize our previous communities in Stoko as well, because now they are working at different companies, and each one of them have friends who are looking for jobs as well.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how we got started.
And so you guys would physically go in person to maybe pitch the workers about this opportunity, basically, or?
That's probably the first couple of weeks.
Wow. Okay. That's great. That's great. Did you guys also tackle, so that's more on the hiring side, but obviously you were also mentioning it's very hard to manage because you need very strict SOPs. And I was even thinking you could have very strict SOPs, but maybe people don't follow it, right?
Yeah.
So like, did you guys try to tackle that side of the issue as well?
Yeah, I think a lot of the problems in the managing of the workers actually comes from the hiring and onboarding aspect. So it's not that the workers are not good, but sometimes it's just a bad match between the worker, the supervisor, and the company.
I see.
Yeah, so we try to solve that by making sure that our matching engine is very good. So we have around like 20-30 parameters of the workers and 20-30 parameters of the companies, and we are matching them granularly. Yeah, we even taken a look at. So we have a community inside the app.
Yeah,
It's very similar to Facebook group.
Okay.
It has also very cool. It's a very cool feature, very similar to Instagram Live or TikTok Live.
Oh.
Yeah, where we can teach them some skills, or they can set up an event to teach other the skills. Yeah, so from those interactions within the app, we gather a lot of signals that we can match with the company.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think back then we solved that issue by making sure that the person being hired is the correct one.
I see.
Yeah,
I see.
I think preventing or fixing the problem when they are already on board is super tough.
Yeah. So you just have to do the intervention even before they join, basically.
Yes.
Interesting. You guys were also backed by Y Combinator, right?
Yes.
Okay. And did you actually go to Silicon Valley to participate in the program, or was it?
So back then in 2022, all of the YC companies are attending the batch remotely.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I guess for you, it must have been like almost like a full circle experience, right? Because when you entered at Twitter, I think even a lot of Silicon Valley engineers, their aspiration is to start like a YC back company, right? How was the experience for you? What were the takeaways?
Yeah. So this was not my first YC experience. So in 2019, I also had an itch to build a startup. That's why I joined a program by YC called YC 120.
Okay.
So it was initiated by Sam Altman.
Oh.
But it's not there anymore because I think he got kicked out. But the idea was how to do some intervention for a company before the team is being built. It's very similar to Antler, where you gather the people and then you give them the facilities to start a company.
Right.
Yeah, so back then their problem is a lot of the startups failed because the co-founders are not working very well with each other.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was attending that program, so that's my first YC experience.
Yeah.
It's very fun.
Yeah.
And then I had a startup idea in 2019 as well. I got to the interview stage, but it didn't get in. So Lumina is my third experience with YC.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's like the real deal. Yeah. So it's very intense, I guess. For 3 months, you are working
non-stop.
Especially we are attending remotely.
Yeah.
So like every day, we need to attend the YC bootcamp from like 12 a.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning.
Oof.
Yeah.
Time differences. Yeah. Wow.
That's very intense, and they chase down our metrics like every week, and they grilled us.
Right. So there's a social pressure in case maybe your group partner is like, hey, this other company is doing well, right?
Yeah.
And you're not.
Yeah.
I see. Do you feel like it was a great experience for you, given that maybe your focus is more Indonesia, obviously, right? And maybe now a lot of YC companies are very Silicon Valley focused or US focused. Do you find that experience still very helpful for you?
I think it's still very helpful because back then it's still a tech product, so we built an app on our website, and YC has a lot of portfolios where they are building really great consumer products.
Yeah.
So we learned a lot in that product building site. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Awesome. I guess now also, I'm curious about, because it seems like the VC environment has changed where a lot of people now focus on like, okay, how can you really maximize profitability and those kind of things, as opposed to before, maybe they had other metrics like consumer growth, like customer growth, or DAUs, or these other more softer metrics, I would say, right? given that, when I think about blue collar as a segment, maybe the overall revenue or the overall profitability could be a little bit lower just because of ability to pay or something like that, right? Did you guys have to think about these given that, this is now the new kind of trope in the VC world?
Yeah, that's something that, at least for me, I didn't expect that the economy will turn this bad.
Yeah.
So when I left Kudangada to build the startup, it was in late 2021. So it's like at the peak of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, people fundraise like tens of millions of dollars without anything.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But in 2022, just like a couple months later, everything becomes very different. So back then, thankfully, we haven't spent that much on ridiculous marketing or like weird stuff, because I saw a lot of people are spending millions of dollars on non-necessary stuff. So back then we are very frugal and prudent.
That's great.
Yeah. So it's initially very shocking for us, but after a time, back then we are focusing more on profitability as well. Yeah. So from like TAU to how many users are getting a job,
right?
And then for the company side, instead of just free users, and then how many users are actually paying and how many are resubscribing.
Interesting. I guess the other question I have on this company, because maybe in previous companies or maybe Toco is a little bit different, is that in an early stage startup, often you don't really know if your product has product market fit, right? So often I think early stage founders and startups, they have to keep on pivoting or they have to keep on changing the product, right? Even if you have actually revenue come in. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things to think about, because you have no idea, should I continue down this path or this path or this path? And it seems like the world is your oyster, but there's so much uncertainty as well. So I'm curious, do you have any advice for, let's say, maybe similar earlier stage founders who are going through pivots or just trying to find that product market fit in the beginning? Like how do they think about it, and how do they do this kind of process more effectively?
Yeah, so that's what's happening with Lumina as well.
Yeah.
So initially we grew very fast, even organically.
Yeah.
So we went from like 0 to 1 million users in just 6 months. I think personally, that's because first the COVID lockdown is being eased and a lot more companies are reopening and a lot more laid off workers are looking for jobs again. So that's a natural phenomena that's helping us.
Yeah.
Second is our strategy as well.
Right.
So we went very fast from 0 to 1 million. The company is also growing very fast. So we have around 10,000 companies using us back then.
Wow.
Yeah, but we haven't charged that much yet back then. So it's very cheap.
I see.
So it's not profitable yet. So after a while, when we are trying to focus on revenue, it can grow, but it hits a plateau very fast as well. And so it gets stagnating after like 1.5 years.
I see.
We tried everything, different like growth strategy, different business models. We tried like pay per CV, pay per interview, pay per screen CV. We even like tried headhunting. We tried outsourcing. We tried a lot of things. Yeah, but it still doesn't work out. So the revenue is still stagnating. So we had to pivot, especially if we are trying to raise a next round. Yeah, so pivots will always, not always, but pivots will mostly happen because the idea we have initially can work, but it can work, but it might not scale. If you are trying to build a venture backable company, it should work and it should scale. Yeah, so pivoting is a skill that every startup founders need to have, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I like the framework of like, honestly, at the end of the day, you just need one thing to work, right?
Yeah.
So if something is not working, then, maybe you just have to kind of pivot, but it's not the end of the world, right? But I do like your point about like, you have to try everything, try your best. And really, really, exhaust the options and then maybe go from there. Because the other alternative is you pivot too fast maybe, and then you're not, ready to pivot or something.
Yeah, I think it comes down to experimenting, I guess. So you need to have a hypothesis.
Yeah.
Okay, if you are trying to head towards that direction, what are the hypotheses? So be it like a different market or different market,
Yeah.
different product or different business models. You need to have a hypothesis and you need to have a clear metrics on whether what you are trying to do is working out or not. Yeah, and then you need to evaluate that every time frame that you are comfortable with. For us back then, I think it's around 2 months.
Wow. Okay. That's great. That's great. Yeah, it's a very scientific kind of process as well, right? And you probably are quite rigorous about tracking the experiments that you run. Does this move the needle? Those kind of things as well, right?
Yeah.
Got it. Another really interesting thing I think you told me is that you've actually built teams not only in Indonesia, but also in other countries, right? Especially engineering teams. Can you tell me a little bit more about that experience as well?
Yeah. So it started with my experience at Stoko.
Yeah.
So back then we have one engineer coming from Pakistan who were previously a freelancer.
Yeah.
But they like what we are doing, so he became a full-timer.
Uh-huh.
And then when we are trying to grow the team in Indonesia, so the startup landscape is very new. Traveloka, Gojek, Bukalapak, Tokopedia has just started.
Yeah.
And there are not many talents available. So we need to look for overseas. And then we found out that Pakistan is a very interesting market in terms of talent. So geographically, I think they are very near to India.
Yeah.
So they have lots of populations as well.
Yeah.
But in India, they have a lot of engineers, a lot of talents, but they also have a lot of companies who are hiring.
Yeah.
In Pakistan, they have a lot of talents, but almost non-existent startup ecosystem.
Oh.
So the talent supply is very good back then, even until now. So we started to hire from Pakistan as well.
Right.
Yeah, in Stoko at one point I think we have around 10 engineers
Wow.
from Pakistan. In Gudalanda I think we have around 15 people. And we even set up an office there with HR as well.
Wow. And how did the cost or those kind of management styles, how does it compare to building a team in Southeast Asia?
In terms of the salary band and etc., I think it's very similar to Indonesia.
Okay.
So the minimum wage, like the food costs and the cost of living and the salary is very similar to Indonesia, especially in the bigger cities. So in Indonesia, I think it's like Jakarta or Surabaya. In Pakistan, it's mostly Islamabad or Karachi. So it's very similar.
I see.
Yeah. In terms of culture, the thing that strikes me the most is we are both a Muslim majority country.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things that we can talk about. Like we are in Ramadan, we are fasting. They are fasting as well. Yeah. So it's very similar, to be honest.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. I think you're probably the first CTO who has ever told me about outsourcing to Pakistan, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And maybe that's a great insight for most people to actually consider, right? And instead of just India or Vietnam, maybe look at Pakistan as well. Obviously, right now, one of the most interesting changes in terms of how people build products and engineering is AI, right? Yeah, I would love to hear a little bit more about your thoughts about how that is changing, engineering, what, if you're a CTO, how should you think about it? And then maybe even if you're a junior level engineer, how do you make sure that you're not replaced by some of these tools? Big question. No pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a very, very tough questions to answer.
Yeah.
Especially that humans are like this. We are growing probably linearly for most people.
Right. And then
while AI, they can grow very fast.
Yes.
And they can do horizontal scalings as well.
Yeah.
For us, we only have one brain.
Right. Right.
So it's very interesting to think about this. For me, personally, I try to use AI, but not too much that I completely rely on them. Yeah, and I advise to every other people to do the same as well. So if you want to compete with your peers or if you want to do better than other companies, then you must use AI. Otherwise, you will get behind.
Yeah.
But if you are too reliant on AI,
Yeah.
like for example, if you are coding, you don't code anymore. You just do prompting
Right.
all the time.
Right.
It will hit back on you.
Uh,
So if the code base is getting bigger,
yeah.
like okay, I'm building a product with just 5 coding only, and it grew to 1 million lines of code.
Yeah.
But you don't actually understand everything being written in the code,
Yeah.
and then a bug happens.
You have no way to debug.
Yeah,
Right.
and the AI is struggling to debug because it's so new and it's so complex,
I see.
and then you will be stuck.
I see.
And it happens more often nowadays. I've heard a lot of people realize that the code base they are building with AI is not scalable or not production ready. Yeah, so using AI in moderation, I think, is the key, both to be productive,
Yeah.
and to be sustainable in the long run.
Do you think though that this limitation on AI is a short-term problem, and in the long run that you could just prompt and AI will also refactor your code base and everything would be elegant and production ready and you don't have to worry about these kind of issues?
That's a great question because it involves something that is not here yet, right? Yeah.
Hypothetical.
Yeah. So from my trial with the current set of AI, I think it's still not there yet.
Yeah.
But I don't know if like in 1 year or 2 years, everything is going to be so good that there is no use case to code anymore. So technically, I think that might be possible to happen.
Yeah.
They can definitely write better code than we do. But the second thing is probably going to be tough for AI to do, which is the human aspect of building a product. Like talking to users,
Yes.
gathering requirements,
Yeah.
doing like debugging with real use case. Like for example, you need to go through a certain area physically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the human aspects, I think, will still need to be done by human.
I see. I guess then if you are a, young person or a new grad or even you're in university right now, how should you think about either pursuing engineering as a career, or maybe is the strategy more than to go into more human like roles like product or something where you buy, AI cannot necessarily manifest in a physical form. So therefore, you still need these
Just
kind of
not
roles.
yet.
Yeah. Maybe not yet. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I will still recommend everyone to study more technical majors like CS or electrical engineering.
Yeah.
And because even though AIs are coding all of these things, at the end of the day, everything is still code, right? When things happen, you need to understand how everything works. Yeah. So even if you are building a product or like developer tools, AI tools, you need to be the one who are envisioning how it works. And if there's something that needs to be optimized, that the AI is not yet there, it still needs human. So having a technical ability, I think it still matters.
Still important.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. I guess speaking of AI, a lot of use cases now we're thinking about is more like consumer oriented, right? About people using AI to write better emails or do summaries or, now coding and stuff like that. One of the things that I think when you talk to investors in Southeast Asia that maybe people are a little bit more negative on is the actually adaptation of AI on a business setting, right? Or having AI kind of driven businesses as opposed to AI as an afterthought or as a shiny new feature. I'm not sure if you have like an opinion about, especially that AI adoption in regards to the enterprise, the more B2B or kind of, like the startup side of things, right? Is that possible? Is Indonesia or Southeast Asia getting left behind? It seems like in the US, VCs only fund, AI companies now, right? But I don't really see that here in this environment right now. Yeah.
I think it probably boils down to how enterprises see AI as a threat to them. Not the enterprise, but the workers inside.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, when you are selling an AI product, it will be humans who are evaluating the decision making whether to use or not,
Yeah.
the users will be humans as well.
Mhm.
So after talking to so many people, I think a lot of people are just afraid that someday the AI will bite back on us and replace us.
Yeah.
So that's a valid concern that
Right.
not a lot of people realize.
Uh-huh.
So of course we want to be efficient, but okay, that will be for, I don't know, 1 year, 2 year.
Right.
What if it will be replacing my entire team?
Right.
A lot of people are afraid of that, and I think it hinders a lot of growth in the enterprise.
I see. Do you think though that it's almost like the nuclear arms race whereby if you do not adopt AI or use it on a more, kind of straightforward way, the other teams who are competing against you who are using those will win. So therefore it encourages almost this unsafe deployment of AI, and whereby it's like a race, right? It's a race to the bottom, right? And even if you didn't want to actually initially, do this, then you're almost forced to by kind of the competitive dynamics of a business.
Yeah, I think for the AI model builders, I think that's the case.
Right.
Like with DeepSeek, OpenAI, Anthropic, and the others.
Yeah.
It's basically an arms race where if you are not advancing, then you will be left behind. And who knows if like the other party will get to AGI first, and
Right.
then everything is being sucked by them.
Right.
But for the users, like the enterprise users, I don't think it's that extreme.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Even if some companies are not using AI, if they can still get things done, I think they will prefer that way, especially in Southeast Asia. So I think it comes down to like the fear of AI replacing them.
Yeah.
It's about like the education of what AI actually is.
Yeah.
Sometimes it gets too overhyped.
Yeah.
Like AI can do things that, I don't know, it only works in the demo, but not
Right.
in the real world.
Right.
But sometimes it's also under education as well. AI can do stuff. Why do you still do this manually? Yeah. So I think it's pretty complex problem for the enterprise users.
Interesting. I'm curious, what are there any interesting fields, industries, opportunities that you're particularly interested in right now,
In AI?
or in general? Maybe not so much AI in Indonesia, but yeah. Yeah.
For now, I'm really interested in education and upskilling, especially in the age of AI.
Yeah.
If the AI is getting smarter and being deployed everywhere,
Yeah.
then how can humans thrive or survive?
Right.
Yeah. So that's a problem that I'm pretty interested to think about. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, we'd love to maybe brainstorm something later. Yeah. I guess, before we go into the rapid fire section, I think one of the most interesting things I think about your background when I think about, growing up for you, to going to Twitter, to taking leadership roles at these tech companies at such a young age and being able to, pick up these skills, is your constant ability to upskill yourself, right? And learn and grow and those kind of things. And I'm just curious, like, how do you do that as a systematic process, or are there any like specific books or resources or systems that you implement that whereby you're actually able to just keep on growing and learning and just being better as a professional?
Yeah, so I stumbled upon this article by Derek Sivers. It's called "There is no speed limit
Okay.
in life
Wow.
and in everything."
Nice.
Yeah, so I think that influenced a lot of my career and how I work.
Yeah.
So the article says that so he went to a college, Berklee College of Music, and he speedrun the 4-year classes
Yeah.
to like just 2 years,
Wow.
and that's doable.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think everything is doable in life as well. Yeah, so that's probably like one of my biggest principles that I have. So if other people can do it in 5 years, then is it possible to do it in 2 years? If other people are learning this in 6 months, is it possible to learn the core principles in just 1 week? Something like that. So I always try to challenge myself to do things faster and more efficiently. And that's my principle for my growth, for my work, even for my product as well. Yeah, that's one. The others are probably extreme ownership. by Joko Willing. That influenced how I work and how I coach other people as well. So in any situation, be it you are a founder or an employee, always have a very strong sense of ownership.
Yeah.
So when things go wrong, do not blame anyone else.
Right.
It should be your responsibility.
Wow.
Yeah. So even if it's not something that you are directly responsible of, but the fact that you are owning the problem, stepping up and try to fix the problem will benefit everyone else, including you. So your peers will be thankful that you helped solve the problem. Your boss will appreciate how you are stepping up to solve that.
Yeah.
And it will be beneficial for your career as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. So yeah, definitely check out those 2 books, I guess, right? Okay. Cool. I guess the last section that we like to do is just like rapid fire questions. So it's just like 4 or 5 different questions. Feel free to think about the first thing that comes to your mind. So the first one is, what is the favorite engineering tool or application that you like right now?
Currently probably the reasoning models, the like DeepSeek, where you can type out a question.
Yeah.
But it actually shares the thought process. So it's really good to understand like how AI think and how I can think the same. So when you are using an AI tool, you are not only getting an answer, but the thought process as well.
Yeah.
So next one, you probably don't need to ask the AI. You can just think for yourself.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. What's one mistake that new CTOs make too often?
I think under delegating. So they get like super busy while the job that he's doing can probably be done better by other people.
Yeah, for sure. What's harder? Do you think it's hiring top talent, or do you think it's retaining them?
Definitely retaining.
Oh.
Yeah. So hiring, in hiring the people, you can sell, you can get them to join.
Yeah.
But in retaining, sometimes it gets very personal, right? Because they have like a lot of data point from the time they join until now. But in hiring, they only have the data point from the interview.
Yeah. So and the marketing on your company, right?
Yeah. So if they want to leave, it's harder to convince them to stay.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. If you're not doing what you're doing now, all this engineering stuff, what do you think you'll be doing?
Oh, I don't know. From my childhood, I will probably be a scientist or astronaut.
Wow. First Indonesian to go to Mars, maybe, Hopefully, maybe Elon is watching this podcast, right? And last one is, what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I've ever received, I think, always test your limits.
Wow.
So do not be satisfied.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for the time. This is an amazing episode. Before we wrap, if anyone is interested in connecting with you, learning more about your background or the company, like where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm active on LinkedIn, Tri Ahmad Irfan, my full name. I'm also active on Twitter, my full name as well, Tri Ahmad Irfan. I also run a newsletter on Substack, stoiccto.com.
Okay.
So it's stoic-cto.com.
Wow.
I usually share my stories on engineering leadership, team building, and the latest tech tools.
That's great. Well, everyone check it out. Thank you so much for your time, man, and really, really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.